Hello. Hey there. Hey. I never got your name. Chris. Chris. And you are? Machado. You guys together? Oh, sure. Okay. Yes. You? Yeah. Hmm. How does this work? Does the rabbi usually start on time, or does he wait for other people to come in? Starts on time. Huh? Okay. Great. I'll just put these here. Okay. Morning, everybody.
Good morning.
And Parshas Re'eh this week. And there's a lot to talk about. And even all the points that I am going to talk about is not going to cover everything. But we'll do the best we can. So a lot of interesting things in this Parsha. The Parsha begins, get a chumash over here. Thank you. So the very first verse in the Parsha begins with Re'eh. Look, I am now putting before you Baracha uklala, blessing and curse. All right, that's the way it starts off. If you want, there's lights in the back there. If you want some light, you can turn on those. Okay. So Hashem is giving us, laying before us, blessing and curse. And that's basically what life is all about. Life is all about Hashem put us in this world, and there's blessings and there's curses. And we have to choose between the blessing and the curse. And the pasuk goes on, it says, what is the blessing? The blessing is if you follow the commandments and you do them. That's the blessing. The curse is if you don't and you go away from the path of the Torah. That's the curse. So that's what it is. That's what life is all about. Are you going to choose blessing or are you going to choose curse? And what exactly is blessing and curse? So the Torah defines it for us. It gives us exact definitions of what is blessing and what is curse. Right? People have, Rav Noach Weinberg's used to always say he would have this, yeshiva in Jerusalem, and there were tourists would come in, Jewish teenagers or a little bit older, college age, and he would ask them, he said, are you a good man? Do you think you're a good man? And almost everybody would say, yeah, well, I'm not perfect, but I'm basically a good man. He said, okay. He said, now I want you to know, are you a bafufstik? So they would say, well, what's a bafufstik? And he would say, I didn't ask you what it is. I just asked you if that's what you are. I said, how am I supposed to answer that? I don't know what a bafufstik is. So he says, how do you know what's good? You're saying you're a good man. What's the definition of good? The Torah gives us the definition of good. That's what it's about. The Torah tells us this is blessing and this is curse. That's what it is. All right. Now, okay. So the first lesson for life that I have in this sheet over here. Anybody got this sheet? Anybody didn't get that sheet? There's a bunch of them over there on the table there. If you want one of those. Okay. So some people, even people who are religious, tend to make a mistake, and they think that life is a game of Pac-Man. Now, what do you mean Pac-Man? Are you familiar with the game of Pac-Man? Right? Pac-Man is, you have this little thing that's gobbling up, and you got to gobble up all the things that give you points. You got to avoid the things that kill you, that cost you points. And I think that that's what life is about. So Hashem gave you, you have to navigate through life and make sure that you do all the commandments and don't do any of the sins. And, then you win. If you get a lot of points, as you go, then you get a lot of points and, and you cash it in when you go to the next world. That's a false picture. That's a false picture. The Torah is telling us that when you do the commandments, you become a better person. You become blessed. And when you don't, it's like taking poison. You're just making yourself sick. You're weakening your soul. You're distorting your soul. So the idea of life is not so much to earn points. The idea of life is to raise yourself spiritually speaking. And how do you do that? You do that with the commandments. That's the way you do it. So that's what life is all about. So that's the beginning of the Parsha. Talks about blessings and curses. Next thing we're going to talk about is building a temple and offering sacrifices. Right? One of the central themes of the Torah is that we should build a temple. Beis HaMikdash. First they had a Mishkan, which is sort of like a portable type of sanctuary, because they had to take it apart and move in the desert. And then when King David came along, he replaced that with a permanent structure, the Beis HaMikdash. And then when that was destroyed, they built a second Beis HaMikdash. The Mishkan lasted a little over 400 years. The first Beis HaMikdash lasted another 400 years. Second Beis HaMikdash lasted another 400 years. And now we're waiting for the third Beis HaMikdash, which will never be destroyed. We're waiting for close to 2,000 years already for that third Beis HaMikdash. But we're waiting for it, and it come any day now. Now, so we have to build a temple. We have to offer sacrifices. And that's a very important part of the Torah. Torah talks many, many times, many, many verses of the Torah that talk about sacrifices. And so the next sort of thing that we're going to talk about is what is the point of sacrifices? So those that came to my class on Shabbos, I basically talk about this. And one of the central ideas of a sacrifice is that a person is made out of two parts. He's made out of a body and a soul. The body that a person has is basically the same as an animal. So an animal with a soul, the animal part of us and the soul. And the idea of life is that the soul should purify the body and make the body, if a person lives the right way, then what he does is the soul dictates to the body what to do. And it says the body, you eat only what you're supposed to eat. You go only where you're supposed to go. You do the things that you're supposed to do. That's what and eventually, when a person does that, then he not only purifies his soul, but he actually sanctifies the body as well, to the point where the body knows when Mashiach comes, the dead, the righteous dead, will come back to life. Their bodies will come back to life because they purified their bodies during the lifetime. So the body also has sanctity. So the idea of a sacrifice is that if a person did a sin and he let the body dictate to the soul instead of the soul dictating to the body. So he takes an animal and he sacrifices the animal as a symbol of how I'm subjugating the body, the animal part of me. I'm subjugating that to the service of Hashem. I know that I veered off and I didn't do the right thing, so the way I'm going to atone for that is to sacrifice the animal. All right? Am I supposed to put the air conditioning on, that part of this? Because it's a little bit warm. Oh. Okay. All right. Okay, we move on. Now, one of the things that in number 2 is private altars are forbidden. Private altars forbidden. So there were certain periods in Jewish life in Israel where they were allowed to have their own private altar. A person just dedicate a stone in his backyard and actually offer sacrifices to Hashem on his private altar. But what the Torah says, that is only permitted when there is no central place for us to bring our sacrifices. Once there's a central place, once the original tabernacle, the original Mishkan, was set in its permanent place, which was in Shiloh, or the Beis Hamikdash was built. Once that happens, then private altars are forbidden. And the idea behind that is that it has much more of an effect when people come together in one central place, rather than just being scattered and everybody does his own thing, right? That's also the idea of coming to shul to daven. You could daven anywhere. You don't need a shul to daven. You don't need a minyan to daven. You don't need a quorum of 10 men or whatever it is, but it's much more powerful when you do that. When you have a central place to come to and you have a group of people, then that augments and strengthens the kind of service that you're going to give when you come to a central place with a bunch of people. So that's the idea. All right. Next thing is that Torah talks about is that in order to eat meat, whether it be from an animal or a bird, it has to be slaughtered in a certain way. Ritual slaughter, it's called shechita. You have to do it in a certain way. Otherwise, you're not allowed to eat the meat. So a hunter, a Jewish hunter, let's say a deer is a kosher animal, but it's very hard for Jewish people to eat venison, to eat deer meat, because you can't shoot it. You can only slaughter it in a very, very specific way. And it has to be done with a knife at a certain point in the neck. And if you don't kill the animal that way, if the animal is badly wounded, then that's called treif. That's treif. That's not that's you can't use that animal. You can't eat it, right? So the only way to eat deer, if somebody wants to eat deer, they have to trap the deer first and then slaughter it the right way. It has to be slaughtered in a certain way. And one of the ideas of this slaughter is that they've proven that this is one of the most humane ways to quickly kill the animal. Um, the ASPCA, went into these slaughterhouses and they started accusing them of cruelty, but it's baloney. It's baloney because it's been proven already that the way it's slaughtered. By the way, one of the things is that a rabbi in a city, when he comes into a city, he has to inspect all the knives, all the sheikhtim, all the ritual slaughterers have to bring them their slaughtering knife, and he runs his fingernail over it. And if he finds it's a tiny little nick, then he says you can't use this knife. Knife has to be perfectly sharp and perfectly smooth, so that it should quickly sever the main arteries, whatever, and the animal is dead in seconds, whatever. And it's a very, very quick and humane way of doing it. So that's a ritual slaughter for meat. The next thing that the Torah says, the Parshat says that you have to come into Israel. When you come into Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel, you have to destroy all the idols. Go and search out any idols that are in the land. Idol worship was a very big thing in the olden days. And we explained in my other class that today it's not really a problem. People don't have this burning desire that people used to have for idol worship. Idol worship was so rampant, and there was a tremendous desire that people had for idol worship, which we don't even understand today. We don't even understand like why. Why would you want to do that? But it was in the olden days. There was a very big evil inclination for a person that wanted to do idol worship. And it was so powerful in it, and it made so many people sin that they made a convocation of all the leading sages, and they prayed to Hashem to please weaken or take away that powerful evil inclination of idol worship. And Hashem responded to them, and he took it away. And that's why we don't have it today. We don't have that desire, that seemingly inexplicable desire that people had to do this sin of idol worship. And there are many that say that that's the reason that we don't have prophecy today. Don't have prophecy. Because when Hashem, the whole purpose of the world is that the world should be balanced between good and evil. Person who comes to this world, the job is that there's good and evil, there's good in the world and there's evil in the world. And you have to choose between the two. And if there's too much good, then it's not fair. Right? It'll be so easy to be good. If there's too much evil, it'll be too hard. So Hashem always has to keep a balance, always to be a balance of good and evil in the world. And if we took away this tremendous evil of idol worship, then Hashem said it has to be balanced. And there's a powerful force for the good, which is prophecy. So Hashem had to take away the power of prophecy in order to offset the fact that we took away the evil of idol worship. So we have destroyed the idols, but that's a very strange thing. The Torah says, destroy the idols, but don't destroy the temple. Don't destroy the temple of Beis Hamikdash, the Mishkan. Well, duh. I said, why would you have to tell me not to destroy the temple? I mean, that sounds ludicrous. They have to have special special commandment not to destroy the temple. So Rashi tells us that inherent in that mitzvah of not destroying the temple is not to sin to the point where we'll have to be punished, that the nations will come and destroy the temple, which is what happened, right? So that when Hashem says don't destroy the temple, it doesn't mean just don't physically destroy the temple. Who's going to do that? But it means don't sin to the point where you will leave the temple open to desecration and to destruction. All right? So that's it. And not only that, but included in that is to destroy anything that Hashem's name is attached to, which means scriptures. You're not allowed to know. There's something that we call shemus. Shemus means names. So the name of Hashem, whether it's written or printed, is not allowed to be destroyed. So if somebody has a bunch of old Sidurim, a bunch of old Chumashim, whatever, and they're not usable anymore, you can't just burn them or throw them in the garbage. You're not allowed to do that. You have to bury them, And that's called shemus. Yes. Old who? Old school notes. Yeah. You have to, so if it has actually Hashem's name in it, then it has to be put in shemus. It has to be in shemus. Now, if you have things that are like newspapers, which have some Torah thoughts in them, whatever, most of the halachic authorities say that you just wrap it up in a bag, whatever, and you can just put it in the garbage. Don't put it directly in the garbage, but you don't have to bury it. You have to you can wrap it up and put it in the garbage. But if it has Hashem's name, then you can't do that. Then the only way you can dispose of that is they have, Chabad does it, whatever. There are organizations that take it from you. They charge you some kind of fee, a nominal fee, and they'll take it and they will, once they get, certain volume, they'll bury it. That's shemus. All right. Okay. So we move on. So number 5 is don't consume blood. The Torah says this a few times, do not consume blood. Now, the blood is sort of the life force of a person, right? Is the blood, right? That's what keeps a person alive, right? The heart pumps the blood around and that delivers oxygen to the body. It delivers, nutrition from what you eat. The blood is life. Blood is life. And when we eat animals. We don't want to become animals. You are what you eat. You are what you eat. So we don't want to consume the actual blood of the animal. That's too much of an animalistic something that you are imbibing. So we don't consume blood. That's what Hashem says. Don't consume blood. Matter of fact, what they have to do is that every time they have meat, so what they do is there's a salting process, there's a koshering process in which they literally cover it with salt to make sure that it draws out all the blood from the meat, because they're not allowed to consume blood. So it's interesting that so there's two opinions about that. Two opinions about this mitzvah of not consuming blood. So one opinion is that the reason that Hashem made a commandment a couple of times not to consume blood is because that was a prevalent thing in those days. In those days, people into eating blood. They weren't drinking the blood, but they would, even today, I think that, whatever people, actually cook meat in the blood, whatever it is. But there's another opinion that says no, that blood is naturally disgusting to people. And Hashem was just telling us, look, if even the things that you find disgusting, if you stay away from it because Hashem commanded you, you'll still get credit for it, even though you say, well, I don't like it anyway, right? So, there's a famous saying that, when if a person, you tell a person, you're not allowed to eat certain things, you're not allowed to eat bacon, okay? You're not allowed to eat, meat from a pig. And so a person shouldn't say, well, it's disgusting anyway. Pigs are disgusting. I don't want to eat pig. You should say, look, I'm sure that it's delicious, but Hashem told me not to eat it, so I'm not eating it. Why, in other words, why forego the mitzvah instead of saying like, well, I don't like it anyway. Okay, so I'm sure there are people who are not Jewish even who won't eat bacon. They don't like it, but they don't like the idea of it. But they're not getting a mitzvah for it, right? The only a mitzvah if you do it because it's a commandment. So the Chafetz Chaim always used to say that people waste so many opportunities, right? There's so many opportunities to do mitzvahs that people waste. Let's say you have somebody work for you. You have a gardener that works for you, and you pay him. So once Chafetz Chaim was traveling with somebody, and they traveled in a wagon, and after they finished the trip, so the Chafetz Chaim asked the person traveling with him, "Did you pay the wagon driver?" He said, "Yeah." He says, "Well, what did you think when you paid him?" He said, he took us with the wagon, so I paid him." So Chavetz Chaim, what a pity. He said, "What do you mean, what a pity?" He says, "You wasted because the Torah says you have to pay a worker on a timely fashion when he does something for you. So instead of just paying him, you could have said, I am fulfilling the commandment of paying a worker in a timely fashion, and then you would have got a mitzvah. This way, you just paid him." So there's so many opportunities when you're doing things that you would have done anyway. But if you do them for the mitzvah, you do them because it's a commandment, then you're enhancing what you're doing and you're sanctifying it, right? And there's so many instances of that that are available. I just tell you, my father, Zechariah Levracha, he passed away, but he was a photographer. He was a wedding photographer, and he used to tell me, he said, I am doing a mitzvah it's a mitzvah to bring joy to a couple that's getting married. And he says, when I do that, even though it's my job, that's how I pay my bills. But I'm thinking to myself that I'm also doing the mitzvah of gladdening the hearts of the groom and the bride. That's what I'm doing because you're doing it anyway. Why not? Why not? Okay. Anyway, number 6 is killing idle influencers. Right? It's very popular thing today. You have influencers, right? The people go and they have social media and they have millions of followers, and sometimes they're spreading poison. They are spreading poison. Mm-hmm. And what they're doing is they're taking a sin, whatever sin is that they're spouting, anti-Semitism, whatever it is, or anything else that they're doing, and they are multiplying it a millionfold, right? Like that's it's like sin on what's it called that they take on the bodybuilders steroids, right? It's sin on steroids. What's what it is, and the Torah says if let's say there's a guy who's a prophet, he's actually a prophet. Now, a prophet, somebody who claims to be a prophet. Now, is a mitzvah in the Torah to listen to a prophet. Somebody comes and he's a prophet and he says, I have a message from God. And God said we should do this. It's a mitzvah to listen to him. You don't listen to him, you're going to be punished because he's a messenger from Hashem, obviously, right? I mean, if Congress passes a law, right, and the cop stops you on the highway and says you're speeding. Say, who are you? Listen to you, right? No, he gets his power from this legislature, whatever it is, that empowered him to carry out the laws of the state. So if Hashem sends a message through a prophet, then you better listen. That's Hashem talking to you through the prophet, right? The only thing is, then that means everybody could say, well, I'm a prophet. So the Torah says very clearly that if somebody says he's a prophet, you don't have to believe him. You don't believe him. You say, prove it. Prove it. How is he going to prove it? Either he does a miracle, something that a human being couldn't do, right? He says, okay, see that building over there? It's going to raise 3 feet, move over 2 feet, and settle down. Okay, whatever. He can do, if he does something miraculous, that's one thing. Or he foretells an event and nobody could know. And he says, tomorrow at 2:00, whatever, there's going to be an earthquake or whatever. I don't know. Something like that, and it happens exactly what it says. But if he does that, then you have to believe him that he's a prophet, and you have to listen to what he says. So now Torah is like this. It's very interesting. Torah says, let's say there's a prophet. In other words, he already proved himself as a prophet. And he comes and he tells you, okay, I have a message from God. Okay, what's the message? He wants us to serve idols. That's what he wants. He wants to do idol worship. I'm a prophet. I proved it, right? And idol worship. Torah says, kill him. Kill that guy because he's lying to you. Lying to you in the name of Hashem that you should do the worst sin that there possibly could be. He's lying. There's no such thing. And if he's a prophet and he's misleading the people, he deserves to be put to death. Or anybody, it says anybody that tries to convince other people to do idol worship should be put to death. Now, it sounds a little radical, right? I mean, okay. So he's giving you bad advice. He has to be put to death. So look at number 6 in the list of life. What's worse, killing a body or a soul? Right? The body is temporary. The soul is eternal. So if somebody murders somebody, we understand that he deserves the death penalty. But somebody who murders a soul is even worse. So idol worship is the worst thing for a soul. And therefore, that's what the Torah tells us to do. Okay. The next thing the Torah talks about is that not mutilating oneself in grief. We saw this when Khomeini, may his name ever be blotted, died. The Iranian original mullah, whatever, who brought untold hatred and destruction to the world. And when he died, you actually saw pictures of his followers scraping their heads till it bled. I don't know if you remember, there were images of them doing that. And that was something that people used to do. Some people used to do whenever they were in grief. They were a very close relative died. They would do that to express their grief in that way. So Hashem says in the Torah in this week's Parsha, don't do that. Don't do that. And the Torah says, Banim atim Hashem Elokechem, you are my children. Jewish people are my children. Don't mutilate yourself. Your princes, your princesses, don't mutilate yourself. One of the reasons not to mutilate oneself is because of number 7. How does a Jew view life? What is life all about? Life, the Mishnah tells us, is a temporary corridor, is a hallway to the world to come. It's a very temporary thing. It's just a way station towards the final destination. That's all it is. If somebody becomes so overcome with grief because a person died, so that means he views this world as the world. This world is not the world. This world is just the hallway to the world. So a person should be grief-stricken. There's no question about it. It's extremely painful when somebody close to you dies. But don't forget the round picture, which is that this is just a temporary existence, and the final existence is in the next world. And the reason we cry when somebody dies is not because we feel bad for him. It's just because it's painful for us. That person is in a better place. That person is enjoying himself in the world to come, hopefully. But to mutilate yourself, get so lost in grief in that way, that's not the Torah way. Okay. Next thing is the Torah goes through which animals, birds, fish, and insects are kosher. Now, you probably just recoiled when I said insects, and you say, what? There are kosher insects? Actually, there are kosher insects. We'll get to that in the middle. So let's get kosher animals. So, of course, what are kosher animals? Animals that chew their cud and have split hooves. I remember when I was a kid and, I was taught animals that chew their cud. I have no idea what that meant. What is chewing their cud? So I was too scared to ask because like a fool, like, why don't you know what that means? Right. So for many years, I always thought that there was like some kind of like something that hung in their mouth that they were chewing on, because they're chewing the cud. Chewing the cud means that it's very interesting that if you put a human being in a field full of grass, the human being will die of hunger. Right. You put a cow, big fat cow, the cow will just like, is in the next, he's in the world to come. I was like, right? So what's the answer? The answer is because our stomachs are not equipped to be able to break down. Grass is very hard to break down into edible protein and whatever it is that you need. But cows have special stomachs that are equipped to able to handle that. But even with their stomachs, it's a long process. So they swallow it, they let it sit there for a while, and they acid, then they spit it back up into their mouth, delicious. And they chew on it again and do it again. They do this for a few times. That's why when you pass a field with cows, they're always chewing. They're not laying the grass. They're always chewing because they're doing this. That's called chewing the cud, right? So they're chewing the cud. So that's one thing. The other thing is they have split hooves. Split hooves. So they have those two things that constitutes the requirements to be a kosher animal. All right? It's the animals. Birds, there are no simanim. There are no signs of kosher birds. So how do you know which is kosher, which is not kosher? So the Torah gives us a list. There's a list of birds. These birds are not kosher. There's about 20 birds in that list. All right. All other birds are kosher. You know how many birds are around the world? I don't know, tens of thousands of birds. Right. That means like your random bird is probably kosher. But Jewish people don't eat any birds. They only eat a few birds. They eat chicken, turkey, pigeon, whatever. Why? Because the problem is that over the years we forgot some of those birds on that list. We forgot what they are. We're not sure what they are. So every bird that we find, it might be one of those birds, and it might be forbidden. So therefore, we only eat birds that we know that our parents and our grandparents ate, right? Because those we know are kosher, but otherwise we don't. But really, you know, almost all birds are really kosher. Okay. Next thing is fish. Fish, in order to be able to eat fish, it has to have the signs of a kosher fish, which is it has fins. It has fins that go like this, without like a shark doesn't have fins, and it has scales, right? The scales those are the signs for a kosher fish. And the last one is insects. There actually are kosher insects, a certain kind of grasshopper, kind of grasshopper, not all grasshoppers, but it's a kind of grasshopper that actually is kosher and could be eaten. And I think there were actually Yemeni Jews who actually consumed grasshoppers. But again, the problem is that because people didn't generally eat grasshoppers, so we forgot exactly what signs are that distinguish the kosher grasshoppers from the non-kosher grasshoppers. So therefore, besides the fact that most people don't want to eat grasshoppers, but I'm not sure about the kashrus of grasshoppers. But that is the parsha in this week's parsha that talks about those things. Okay, so the next question is number 8 on the side. If Hashem loves the Jewish people, why does he burden us with so many restrictions? Right? You say, like, here you go. So, I teach first grade. So I tell the first graders, I say, look, let's say you have there's 2 kids sitting at a table, and there's a table over here that has like a whole gourmet of candy and cake and everything like that. And the guy who owns this stuff, he says one of the kids, he says, "You enjoy yourself. Right? Take whatever you want, whatever." And the other one, he says, "Most of this is not for you. You can have that one and that one. All the rest, no good." Right? So I asked the kids, which one does he like better? Which of the kids does he like better? Obviously, the one that he told could eat anything, he likes him better, right? So I said, okay, so there's non-Jews and there's Jews. And non-Jews, Hashem said, you eat whatever you want, right? And the Jews, yeah, no. You can't eat this, you can't eat that, you can't eat this. But what's going on over here? If Hashem loves the Jewish people, what is it? I said, so the answer is, so you have like let's say there's a doctor making the rounds, and there's a resident, a guy training to be the doctor is accompanying him on his rounds. And the doctor says, look, accompany him, right? Don't ask me the questions while I'm going around, but when we're finished, we'll discuss the patients. And he goes into one patient, he looks at the records of this patient, and he says to the nurse, he says, yeah, you can give him pretty much anything, only a couple of things he can't eat. And just give him some painkillers and that's it. Okay. They move on to the next one. He looks at the thing and he says, "Ooh." He says to the nurse, listen, He has a very, very restricted diet, this guy, and he can only eat this, only that, and he needs a lot of medicines. I know they're very bitter, but he's got to take all these medicines, whatever. Okay, so he finished the rounds, and they go into his office, and doctor says, "Nu, what do you think about the patients?" She said, "Well, the first patient obviously is doing pretty well, almost well, right? And the second patient, he's in bad shape, bad shape." He says it's the opposite. It's the opposite. The first patient, I saw he doesn't have much to live. He's gone. He's a goner, right? So why should I make him crazy? Don't eat it. Well, what's the point? What's the point, right? He's not going to last much longer anyway. So just let him eat what he wants, and that's it. The second guy, I could save that guy. He could live for another 50 years, right? So get the full diet. Boom, right? So he says, the non-Jewish nation, the non-Jewish, they're not holy. They're going to last forever, not eternal. So why burden them with all these things? The Jewish people who are supposed to be totally eternal, they need this restricted diet. Okay. Number 9 is, Torah talks about there's 3/10 that a farmer has to give from his produce. Now, he only has to give 2/10 every year. There's 3/10. 1/10 goes to the Levium. The Levium are the ones that work in the temple. And when they divided the land, the Levium didn't get a portion of the land like everybody else did. They just got cities to live in, but they didn't get fields and farms. And therefore, since they're busy with taking care of the service in the temple, we have to support them because they're our representatives. So we have to support them. So we give 1/10 to the Levium. Then there's a second 10th, and that was this talks about, and that is that you take another 10th of your produce, and it belongs to you. It's yours. But you have to eat it only in Jerusalem. You have to eat it in Yerushalayim. So if you want to eat it, take it to Yerushalayim and eat it over there. And if you don't, it's too much for you to eat, right? I mean, let's say he's a farmer. He has like a really big farm, and he's got, I don't know, dates. Okay, he's got date farm, right? So he's got truckloads and truckloads of dates. He takes 1/10. 1/10 is a lot of dates. How much dates could say he has to leave his family and go? Okay, maybe he can take his family along with him if it's possible. Let's say a lot of times he couldn't take his family with him. He goes to Jerusalem and he has all these dates. How many is if he stays there till he finishes all the dates and away from his family for 2 weeks, so he just leaves it there, eats some of it, and then he gives it out to the poor people in Jerusalem, whatever. If he doesn't want to schlep it, doesn't want to take all that stuff and transport it to Jerusalem, he's allowed to just take the value of the dates, put it onto coins. Then he's allowed to eat the dates outside of Jerusalem. He could take the coins to Jerusalem and then buy food in Jerusalem and eat it over there. That's called Ma'aser Sheni. That's the second 10th. The third 10th is the 10th that goes to poor people. Now, the way it worked is, I get too technical over here, but there's a 7-year cycle that they used to keep in the land of Israel. And they used to do like this: the first and second year of the cycle, then you took the first 10th for the Levium and the second 10th that's brought to Jerusalem. Second year, same. Third year, instead of taking the second 10th to Jerusalem, you gave that 10th to the poor people. Then the fourth and fifth year, again, the first for the Levium, the second to bring to Jerusalem. Then the sixth year, you replace the 10th that's brought to Jerusalem and give it to the poor people. And then the seventh year, there's no farming or whatever. That's called Shemitah. Then, okay, so that's the way it works. The next thing is number 10. Seventh year Shemitah is debt cancellation. When Shemitah comes around, the Torah says you have to cancel all debts. Any outstanding debts that people owe are automatically canceled in the 7th year. That's, yeah. So the basic idea behind that is that we don't want people to be overburdened with debt. So, at least people know that, there's an end to it. When the 7th year comes around, then, it can be forgiven. The problem is obvious problem is that people will be very, very hesitant to lend money, right? If you know that it's going to go out the window, seventh year comes, then who's going to lend money? And Hashem wants us to lend money. It's very important to lend money to people. People need the money. So in later generations, there was a big tzaddik called Hillel, and he came up with a pruzbul. Pruzbul is that you make a special document that you are handing over your debts to the central court. Once you do that, then Shemitah doesn't cancel the debt. All right. So he made that in order to have an option for people to avoid this debt cancellation. Okay. The next thing, number 11, is giving tzedakah, giving charity. You have to give charity. And even though we don't have a tenth today for the farms, but we still are supposed to take a tenth of our earnings and give that to tzedakah, a minimum of 10% of what we earn. Now, it's after expenses. After expenses, whatever, after taxes, after everything, whatever you earn, you're supposed to give at least 10% to tzedakah, to charity. The interesting thing is that the Torah says you have to give it cheerfully. You're not supposed to be begrudgingly, right? And the Torah also says a very strange thing. It says that if you don't give it, the poor man will complain to me that you're not giving him charity, and you'll be punished. So the obvious question is, first of all, why do I have to do it cheerfully? Okay, I'm doing it. Okay, I'm giving it. All right. Why do you have to go? Sure, yeah, take it. Right? Why? Why is that important? And also, why does a poor person have any right to complain? Like, okay, I got my mitzvah. What? It's not your money. Why are you complaining? Right? That's the answer. The answer is like this. The answer is that Hashem runs the world. He provides for everybody. Now, he wants to provide the poor person too, that he should have. But for whatever reason, Hashem decreed that this poor person shouldn't get his money in a nice, honorable way. He's going to get it in a demeaning way. He's going to have to beg. He's going to have to beg to get his. But the thing is, if he tells you to give charity, Hashem decides on Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is coming up. And Rosh Hashanah, on the first day of the year, Hashem sets what everybody is going to earn that year. All right? So if you're going to earn, let's say you're going to earn $100,000 that year, right? And you tell the guy, well, you have to give 10,000 to charity. You have to give 10% to charity. He says, 1 second, I'm supposed to get 100,000. I'm only getting 90,000. So Hashem said, you know what? I'll tell you what. If I decide that you're going to get 100,000, I'm going to give you an extra 10,000 to give to charity. And that way, it won't take away from what you're supposed to get. Aha. Now we answered our two questions. First question, why give it cheerfully? Because it's not yours. Why would it's not even yours, right? The person gives you, look, do me a favor. Here's an envelope. Here's $10,000. Could you give it to that poor person? And your guy comes to, could I have it? Well, I don't know. It's not even yours. Sure, take it. Why not? No sweat off my back, right? That's the way a person should view charity. But charity is not, you're not even giving what's yours. Hashem gave it to you to give, right? And that's why the poor man is going to complain. Because it's his money. It's his money. If you don't give charity, it's not even your money. It's his money. So he has the right to complain because you're not giving him what is his due. All right. So that's this idea of charity. Next thing is number 12. You're supposed to give the firstborn animal. If you have kosher animals on your farm, whatever you have, sheep or cows, whatever it is, then the firstborn animal of whatever mother animal it is, you have to give that to the kohen. But that's the same thing, the idea of giving the first to Hashem. The kohen, the priest, is sort of like Hashem's worker, Hashem's messenger, and you're saying that I'm the first that I have, just like the first produce that you get, just give to Hashem. The first thing goes to Hashem. Yeah. The The firstborn, right? The firstborn, right? No. Okay. Next thing, number 13, visiting Jerusalem on the three festivals. This is very interesting. Um, Torah says that every able-bodied man has to go to Jerusalem on the three festivals. Three festivals are Passover and Shavuos and Sukkot. Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot, those are the three main festivals. And every able-bodied man has to, now naturally, most of them would take their family with them, but if they can't, whatever, they have to go, and they have to spend at least one day in Jerusalem, and they have to bring sacrifices when they go. And the idea of this is that we know that we need chizuk, we need strengthening. We tend to get stale. And even if you're very religious, you tend to get set into a pattern and it becomes habit, and the fire and the energy is not there anymore. And the way to do that, and they have, so they have like a Shabbaton, right? They have a Shabbaton. You have, like things, you have speakers and this and that, to sort of like, get a shot in the arm. And it's part of the Torah that you have to go, and Jerusalem was a holy city, and the Beis Hamikdash was there, and the Kohanim were there, Levim were there, and you went there, and you got a spiritual recharging station. That's what it was, all right? And that's why the Torah commands us 3 times a year, you got to get recharged, and you got to go and imbibe the sanctity and the holiness that is the holy city. Okay, the last thing over here, number 14, is very interesting. Don't add or subtract any of the commandments. A person will say, look, it's a little too much for me. I'm going to subtract a little bit, whatever. I'll do that. They want to add. Let's say, for instance, they give an example. Let's say there's four, in tefillin, or those boxes that you're supposed to wear, there's four parshas, there's four things that you're supposed to write and insert in the tefillin. Guy says, you know what? I'm going to insert another one. I'm going to write another one and insert a fifth one, right? That's an Avera. It's a sin. It's a sin. They're not allowed to add. So the obvious question everybody asks is, I understand why you're not a subtract, right? Okay, you got to do what you got to do. But I want to add. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with adding, right? So the famous parable that was told at Magnet is, that he told us this, really amusing parable. Parable is that there was a fellow who had a new neighbor move in next door, and after a couple of weeks, the new neighbor knocks on his door and he says, "Look, I'm making a little party, and I'm missing a silver spoon. I have a silver set. Would you mind lending me one of your silver spoons?" Now, a silver spoon is really silver; it's worth a little bit, whatever. And guy looked, I didn't know this guy, I don't know. Well, it's only one spoon, so that's the big thing. Okay, sure. Yeah, thanks, spoon. Okay. A couple of days later, he comes back. He says, "Here's your spoon." He says, "1 second, there's 2 spoons here." He says, "Your spoon had a baby." This spoon had a baby. All right. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Very good. You get free spoon. Okay. Oh, yeah. Takes, a couple of weeks later, he knocks on the door again. He says, "Listen, I need it like a setting, not just a spoon. I need a setting." He says, "Okay, a little bit of money. Okay, give him the setting." A couple of days later, he comes back, 2 settings. They had babies, right? Okay, right? Okay. A couple of weeks later, he comes back. He says, "Listen, I'm making a really, really, really big party this time. I need your whole storage of silver thing." He said, "Sure." I'm getting, man, I'm going to get rich on this guy, right? So he gives him his whole storage of silver, whatever. And a couple of days go by and he doesn't knock on his door to give back his silver. He waits a few more days and he doesn't knock. Finally, he goes over to the neighbor and he says, "Where's my silver?" He says, "I'm so sorry. They died." Right? He says, "Died? What are you, nuts? Silver, they died." 1 second. You believe me when I said I had children, huh? Okay, finished. Right? So that's the idea. Notice if a person can add, right? So that means that he can tamper with the laws as he sees fit. Once he can tamper, then he can tamper, right? Once he can change things, he can change things. So that's why Hashem says, you know what? Don't add and don't subtract. That's sort of an oversimplification of it. The plain explanation is that when something is perfect, changing it is not going to make it better. Hashem is perfect and the Torah is perfect. And he gives us a certain formula about how to live a perfect life. Don't change it. Don't add, don't subtract. It's perfect the way it is. Okay. Thank you very much for listening and learning. And me and Shem will meet next week because Rabbi Chapnik is not going to be here. So you're going to suffer with me once again. All right. Any questions? Any whatever? Okay.
Thank you,
Beautiful.
Rabbi.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Sure.
You said that every man in after family should visit Jerusalem for every festival. There's not enough space in Jerusalem.
That's an excellent question. Excellent question. Okay. So, is there a sitter? A sitter? Need a sitter. And direct your attention. It says that there were 10 miracles that used to regularly occur in Jerusalem. I'm not sure I can find it, but one of them is no one ever complained that there wasn't enough room in Jerusalem. Did you imagine such a thing? Like, first imagine the influx. Imagine that influx. Millions of people, millions, crowding into a city that was not designed for that. Right? And, I'll just, you ever see like a sort of like a big concert or whatever. Right. And the people are just jammed together. Does anybody complain? They're not. They're not complaining. Because they're so excited about what they're doing, right, that they're not complaining. Right? So that's,
and maybe the city.
Yeah, this one right over here. There. 7, 5, 7. 10 miracles performed ancestors in the holy temple. And one of them is nor did any man say to his fellow, the space is insufficient for me to stay overnight in Jerusalem. So
I believe yes. So let's see.
Yeah, sure.
And
7. The last thing 7.
and you say this every single minhag or only on Shabbos? Oh no, this is spiritual.
Big Elvis, yeah.
Okay, big. And I have one more question.
Sure.
Tzedakah.
Yes.
When giving tzedakah, why you have this distant family member that needs tzedakah?
Yes.
Is that kind of tzedakah?
That's priority tzedakah. Priority tzedakah. Matter of fact, I'll tell you personally speaking that I always give quite a bit of tzedakah, and I've been doing that for many years. And then some family member, whatever, and she needs to be almost supported, whatever. And I even spoke to my rabbi, and I was told, forget about all the rest of your charities that you were supporting. This is priority. That's priority. The B'sorcha al Tsalim, there's a pasuk that says, from your flesh, do not hide. That's the priority. Is if you have a relative, blood relative, they take precedence over anything else. In what way? What do you mean that you're not sure that they really are becoming like too dependent? Is that I obviously I can't tell you that. Obviously, that it depends on so many different things, whatever. So you have to speak to people who know this person, and try to gauge it. And you have it's a delicate thing. It's a delicate thing. There is such a thing. There is such a thing as over dependence, and you have to sort of like approach it with a lot of diplomacy and intelligence, and to see you know what has to be done. Yeah. Okay, you're very welcome.